It's fine. Right, so we are continuing and rounding up. You can start.
Yeah.
We are continuing and rounding up our lesson on the alliance system. So on Friday we will be having a test on the causes of the World War, with a particular attention to the alliance system as a cause. Right? Yes. So in the last lesson we established that Britain had left the policy of splendid isolation. Right? Britain had left that policy of splendid isolation, and we gave a couple of reasons. So for recap reasons, can you please tell us why Britain left the policy of splendid isolation? Yes.
Because of Bismarck.
What?
She wanted an ally who can check Russia and Germany.
Yes, he needed an ally. What else, Claire?
Britain felt insecure. So
Yes, but some of the countries had already had some friends already. Sorry. Yes, Troy?
The arms and naval races.
Yes, it made her insecure. So Britain ended up into an alliance with Japan. But later on, in 1904, she signed the Entente Cordiale. The Entente Cordiale of 1904, she signed it with which country? France. She signed the Entente Cordiale with what? With France. Remember, France is Germany's perennial enemy. So it was signed between Britain and France, the Entente Cordiale. And what is an Entente? An Entente is an agreement to set areas of dispute. Let me explain here. Right. So France and Britain were at loggerheads. When I'm saying they were at loggerheads, they were always quarreling over colonies. Right. But later on, they discovered something. They discovered that they all had a common enemy. And what's the name of that common enemy? It was Germany. So before they even got into friendship, before we even have the Entente Cordiale to talk of, France and Britain were serious enemies. But despite that enmity, they ended up becoming friends later on, as in line with the Entente Cordiale of 1904. Why? Because they all had a common foe or a common enemy called what? Germany. So they had to unite against what? Against Germany. So it was not directed against a specific enemy. It was not a military alliance, and it was aimed at fostering cooperation between Britain and France, especially in settling disputes concerning overseas territories, right? So they later on abandoned their differences and they became friends because their common enemy was what? Was Germany. So what were the terms of this treaty? Number one, Britain agreed not to oppose French aims in Morocco. So France desired Morocco, then Britain respected that. And Britain also desired Egypt, and France respected that. So Britain's occupation of Egypt was not to be opposed. Thus, they recognized each other's interests because they are now friends. They are my friends. Yes. So when my friends now respect our decisions. So the two agreed to work together in the event of a what? Of a conflict. Right. So later on, there was also the Anglo-Russian agreement. There was also the what? Anglo-Russian agreement. Which year is this? 1907. 3 years after the signing of the Entente Cordiale. Right. It was signed by Britain and France, by Britain and Russia. It was signed in St. Petersburg in Russia, right? The fear of a Franco-Russian drive against India forced Britain to oppose the extension of Russian influence Because Britain was so imperialistic. She was being hurt by the fact that Russia ikuramba ichitora territories kumiddle east ichitora ichienda. So Britain yakapedzisira yakoti zvakashatira kuti ndingoita friend yeRussia. I don't think there is any problem. So even the downfall of Napoleon III did not make the British feel secure in their possession of India. And at the end of the 19th century, Russia's position was growingly progressively stronger than Britain. Russia's position, especially in Asia or in the Middle East, was growing stronger and stronger and stronger in each passing day. So Russia conquered most of Central Asia and extended their influence to Manchuria and Korea, posing a threat to British interest in what? In China. Because Britain had interest in China, but now we are having a situation whereby Russia is taking over some of the colonies stretching into China. So Britain felt insecure thereof. So it was not a military alliance, it not necessarily geared against Germany, but the agreement led to the formation of the what? Of the Triple Entente. Because the situation that we have here is we have Russia, right? Let me try to explain it, guys. So we have Russia here, right? We have Britain here, we have France here. So what's the issue here? Like already, before all this, we already have the Triple Alliance. It was like I always say in the past lessons, after this topic has been done and dusted, you find out that Europe was now divided into two hostile camps, i.e. the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente. So we have managed to establish the what? The Triple Alliance. So we are now going to the final stage in which we want to establish the what? The Triple Entente. So what's the issue here? We have Russia. Russia is now friends with what? With Britain. Then Russia is also friends with what? With France. Right. Then Britain is now became a friend with what? With France via the what? The Entente Cordiale of what? Of 1904. So these countries were sort of allied in one way or the other, to an extent that they said, now since we all have friendships, let us be friends tacitly. Tongogadzira chimwani chinonzi Triple Entente. Because already that is about 3 when we are all anti what? We are all anti-Germany. So at the end of the day, what were the terms of this treaty? Britain and Russia settled their colonial disputes in Persia, Afghanistan, and Tibet, and the two also settled their differences over India, right? Because the issue is for you to become friends, you have to settle differences, right? Yes. But sometimes you might be fighting over a certain issue. So for you to become friends, you have to solve that issue. Then you can be what? You can be friends. And all these 3 countries were all anti-what? Anti-German. That's one of the major aspects which compelled them to form the Triple Entente. So the Tibet, a place called Tibet, which was of interest to both, was declared to be neutral. They agreed that neither of them would interfere in Tibet's internal affairs, and the treaty recognized Britain's influence over Afghanistan, and Russia gained control over northern Persia, and Britain gained control of southeast and the Persian Gulf. Right. So we have already established everything, and now we are going to look at the Triple Entente of 1907. The Triple Entente. The Triple Entente is what? 1907. Thank you very much. So it was signed by Britain, France, and Russia. So the Triple Entente was signed by Britain, France, and Russia. So France had brought her 2 friends together. Britain and Russia ironed out their differences. The support given by Russia to France and Britain at Algeciras conference in 1906 also drew them together. Because these areas correlate. We also touch on the Moroccan crisis for next week. We are going to do the first Moroccan crisis and the second Moroccan crisis in the next lesson, so you understand what I'm saying. So you also, whenever you are studying the cause of the First World War, please look at their correlation. When I'm talking about their correlation, I'm simply talking about where these topics lead. I think before I started to teach about this cause of the World War, I explained about the statuses of these countries before the what? Before the World War. Isn't it? Yes. Why did I do so? It is because I wanted you to link with what will happen in the future. So when we have the understanding, or when you would have understood the what? The alliance system as of today, as we see it, you find out that the next topics, for example, the Moroccan crisis that we are going to deal with starting from next week is linked with the what? With the alliance system. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Right. So the alliance was described as an anti-German club of Britain, Russia, and France. And this alliance was meant to counter the what? The Triple Alliance. This alliance was meant to counter the Triple Alliance, which means it was anti-Triple Alliance. So what were the terms? They agreed to divide Persia into 3 spheres of influence. So there was an area called Persia. That was in Asia. They decided to divide it into 3. Like the northern sphere, including Tehran, was to be put under Russian influence. The southern sphere was to be put under British influence. Tibet, which was of interest to both, was declared to be neutral. They agreed that neither of them would interfere in Tibet's internal affairs. Tibet was going to be left like that. No country was going to interfere in the affairs of Tibet. And China's sovereignty was to be recognized, and a complete balance of power was struck. So that's it for the alliance system. It's now done and dusted, because we have already established that we now have the Triple Alliance, then the what? The Triple Entente. So Europe was now divided into what? Into 2 groups. So those are the 2 groups which graduated into the Central Powers and the Allied Powers, which are those groups which fought into what? Which fought during the course of the World War from 1914 to 1918. So we might be asked the question, to what extent did the alliance system contribute to the outbreak of World War I? How did the alliance system contribute? Yakakonzeresa sei hondo. Number 1, it called for the inconvenience of many countries because of the feeling of insecurity. So each and every country would feel insecure, right? While you can insecure, a friend. That's number 1. Number 2, Bismarck's alliances helped to increase the figures of other nations, especially France. France began to what? To hunt, to desperately look for friends, right? Then it led to the division of what? Of Europe into 2 camps. Like these camps were not just 2 normal camps; they were armed camps. They began to multiply their weaponries. Like they began to add more soldiers. Arms and naval race to talk of. So the 2 camps increased strength year after year after year, to an extent that when the World War broke out in 1914, it was so easy for it to break up. Both these countries had been accumulating weapons all along. So the alliances operated to convert a local quarrel into a general war, and the 2 camps were the ones that fought during the war, and the armies ready for war on the continent were the largest ever formed in times of peace. So that's it for the alliance system. On Friday, we are going to write a test on the alliance system, but it will be a multiple choice, testing you on the basics understanding of this area. Then from next week, we are moving on with our courses. We'll start with the what? We start with the Moroccan crisis on Monday. Right. Thank you.